so much, Elizabeth, and the team from SciLifeLab. Um, I will be taking you through our activities where we are building strategic partnerships and using that to catalyze open science advocacy in Africa. So, to begin with, we are based at the University of Nairobi and the Faculty of Science, Technology, and Innovation, and we were established in 2006, and we are a not-for-profit organization. We have four focal areas, and one is on open science and advocacy, where we foster global stakeholder engagement to adopt open science-based practices. Then we have one on open infrastructure, where we are promoting fair data sharing through the flagship project, the Africa PID Alliance, and it's through that project we've actually created the first, Africa's first originated persistent identifier, which is called the Digital Object Container Identifier. And what we've done, or we call it DocID. And what we've done is that with that persistent identifier is that we are trying and make systems or ecosystems that were not particularly very fair, more fair, particularly in indigenous knowledge and cultural heritage. And the more we are learning and using DocID, we are realizing it can actually be used in various workflow processes, particularly that need multilinear support. And the DocID is able to do that. To be clear, it's not competing with other persistent identifiers. If anything, we've incorporated them within the ecosystem so that it is, we also show that also these persistent identifiers need to speak to each other and support and make the ecosystem more fair. Then we have another focal area is on capacity building, where we train early career researchers in scholarly and science communication. And that's how actually we started TCC, through capacity building. And then we have the higher education stakeholder engagement program, which drives partnership to develop innovative and sustainable solutions in higher education. Our mission is to contribute to the increase in profile locally and internationally of African science and its impact on the life of Africans by improving their skills in technical communication. So when you're looking at technical communication, this is where we're looking at the elements of scholarly and science communication. And I hope you see the connection of how open science and open infrastructure actually falls under the scholarly communication. Our objective is to train, support, and empower researchers through capacity in improving their research output and visibility. And that's now where we really work with the early career researchers, work with Global North partners in making sure that we share some of these resources with early career researchers to know how they can use them to improve their research, not only research discovery, but their research life cycle. When we work with various partners, our values are collaborative, supportive, and also goal-oriented. So we don't mind the hand-holding process when it comes to creating collaborations. And we realize this is really important because collaboration is about trust. It's not because you're a funder or you're a project that has a funder that has funding and you come in and go when the project, the funding is over. It's about building trust, building relationships such that beyond the project, you're still there to work with the partners. And it's because of this that we are seeing in our collaborative conversations, we are even having governments reach out to us to support them in creating their open science and advocacy strategies. Our partnership is pretty much from a triple helix perspective, where we are working with academia and research institutions, involving policy and governance, so that is government institutions and industry and infrastructure. And all this support the entire activities that we're doing, whether it is on open science and advocacy, open infrastructure, the higher education stakeholder engagement, or capacity building. So for the purpose of this conversation, we'll be focusing on open science, and we'll share with you how we are building community and engagement when it comes to open science in the continent. When you're looking at community building and engagement in open science, from an engagement perspective, we are looking at bringing people together with shared goals. So in order to avoid duplication of work, and this sometimes can be a bit tethy because there's a lot of geopolitical interest. So we have to be very careful on how we make a case for all our partners. And this is important because when you are able to engage and bring people together, you end up having consistent conversations and interactions. Because one of the things we've noticed that so far, open science is the newest toy, still the new toy in the playground. And something else will take over. Like now, what you're saying is AI. And then people will forget about open science and then focus on AI. And then something else will come up. And if you don't have consistent interactions through engagement, you end up having such noble causes falling through the cracks and the people who actually need it not benefiting from it. And for some partners, unscrupulous partners, they've just ticked a box. It's like, oh, we've done this, and that's good enough for us. We don't look at it from that perspective. We look at it from a long-term sustainability perspective. And that is why engagement for us is very key, and building and sustaining those engagements. Once we've established these engagements, we end up having communities that are sustained through the engagement of what we offer through our collaboration, peer learning, and advocacy. This makes science, open science, more practical and not theoretical. And that is pretty much the focus of how we work. And when it comes to community building, we believe that strong communities amplify collective action. So ensuring that open science principles translate into real-world impact, from shaping national policies to improving research practices. And what we ultimately hope to achieve is this connection helps shift the culture of research from closed to competitive to open, inclusive, and collaborative. Okay, so when you're looking at building open science communities across regions, it's cyclic. We're building an open science community, and for that you need to have sustainable partnerships. You need to have, and in order to have sustainable partnerships, you need to be collaborative and share learning practices with various stakeholders. You need to have collaborative networks, build and create collaborative networks. You need to have collaborative action. And then you end up building, as I said, it's cyclic. Then you end up having that sustainable partnership. The reality on the ground is that, I'll say this with a grain of salt, is that various institutions have their own interests. So sometimes you find that the building of the sustainable partnership tends to fall through the cracks because people are not looking at the big picture of truly working together, avoiding repetition of the same activities, but instead choosing to make it more competitive so that they are relevant to donors. And yes, these are realities we cannot deny. The funding pool is very slim. So in order to become relevant to donors, there's that convenient amnesia on the need for collaborative networks and collaborative sharing, and such that you can have more sustainable partnerships. Instead, you end up having more competitive aspects to it. So we are trying to avoid that. And I can assure you, it is such a slow process, but it is quite sustainable because, as I said, when we began the presentation, we are having now governments reaching out to us to see how we can support them in their open science and advocacy activities, because they are seeing the sustainability and the sustainability aspect of us maintaining partnerships in the region and making sure that we work beyond even the collaboration itself, so that open science can be implemented in a practical manner within the countries. Okay, so our primary partner in advancing open science in Africa is PLOS. And we started this partnership in 2021, and our aim is to amplify the representation of African research in global scholarly publishing. But beyond that, our collaboration focuses on enhancing the visibility and accessibility of African research through open, inclusive practices that align with local contexts and values. So both our organizations are united in our commitment to democratizing research and advancing open science across higher education in Africa. Now, through our partnership in Africa with PLOS, these are some of we've literally worked in the entire continent from a regional perspective. And the countries you're seeing here are what we've managed to do up to 2025. As we speak, we have more countries that have actually requested for support, like in the case of East Africa, which I'll go into a deep dive. We started with the East African Science and Technology Commission. That is ongoing. And in Kenya, we are working with the government to help create a national open science strategy. In Tanzania, we help them come up with a national guideline publishing, and it is the first of its kind in Africa, which is also going to include open science principles. In Uganda, we help them identify all the open science stakeholders now, and they want to include, and the open science stakeholders' role is to come up with documentation which can be included within the Higher Education and Tertiary Act. Now, and all these begin with convenings where we bring in all these open science stakeholders coming together, and we bring all the higher education stakeholders and we discuss on what is their priority on open science. So as I said, we started with 3 countries in East Africa, and then we've had countries reaching out to us. So the Democratic Republic of Congo, and this is at ministerial level. It's just not only at university level. So you have literally the Ministry of Education reaching out to us to support. So DRC, Burundi, Rwanda, and they have also requested we need for support, and Somalia to help support in creating open science principles within their respective countries. In North Africa, we've worked. We started in Morocco last year in partnership with ASREN, and then there was a request from the government of Tunisia. This summer, we are going to have a convening with Tunisia. Libya has reached out to us, and we are looking at strategic ways and also how to work with Egypt as well. So our partner is the Arab States Research Education Network. In Southern Africa, we've worked with the African Open Science Platform, and at that point, we worked with the University of Cape Town, the Association of African Universities, and the University of Pretoria. Yes, the University of Pretoria as well. No, yes, the University of Pretoria. Then in West Africa, it was with ECOWAS, and we're still working with ECOWAS. And we've worked with Ghana, and now the government of Liberia has reached out to us. And you're seeing more countries reaching out to us to work with us. Now, let's be very critical about the collaborations. In Africa, because of its sheer size, we have supranationals that handle higher education, that handle policy, representing each regions of the various regions of the continent. So in East Africa, we have the East African Science and Technology Commission, which all the ministries of science, technology, and innovation report to. And they report to the East African community. So visualize the European Union, but divided into batches. So there's the African Union on the continent, but then there are regional bodies which have diplomatic status that also report to the African Union. And they are very powerful when it comes to creating policy at regional level so that countries can actually take them up within their respective, within their respective nations. So what we did with East Africa, in the East African community, is that we created the first regional open science principles were included in the first in the East African Science and Technology and Innovation Policy, and this was the first of its kind because for the first time on the continent, 7 countries, so 7 ministers, 7 presidents signed to agree to have open science principles within that document. Now it is easy for the countries in that region, the 7 Eastern African countries, to come up with national documents on open science. In West Africa, we are working with ECOWAS. ECOWAS is also another regional bloc with the Economic Organization for West African States, which is also a community parliament of all West African states. And it's through them that they have created the ECOPOST, which is their policy document for the region, and they've included open science in it. In North Africa doesn't have a community parliament, but then they have regional networks that are quite influential in higher education. So the Arab States Research Education Network literally supports North Africa and the Middle East. And it's through them that we're actually working with government. So they have such powerful say on how we work in North Africa. So from what you're seeing is that we work at a very high level before we actually go to national levels. And it is through this kind of relationships that you're seeing more African countries reaching out to us. And of course, we are working with the Association of African Universities, which is the umbrella body for all universities on the continent. So this is our partnership with ASREN. It started last year in February, and we started with a convening as well. And this partnership has literally made the kind of work we do on the continent completely African, not sub-Saharan and North African and Middle East. It's completely regionally and politically what do you call it, African. And we are really happy about what we've done, because one of the activities that we did was we had a convening in Morocco, and we are going back at the end of the year. And the government of Tunisia has reached out to us for the same, and also the government of Libya. So you can see that is continuous support of the various stakeholders in North Africa. So this is the convening that we did in Morocco. It was in partnership with the Association of African Universities as well, and the National Council for Research and Science and Technology in Morocco. So one of the things that Morocco has done is that they've created a national strategy, and right now it's at the ministerial desk, awaiting approval and sanction so that it can be implemented by the Council for National Research and Science and Technology. So why engagement is vital for us in open science? First of all, it drives collaboration. That is very clear, and it builds trust. For us, it's also the trust. The fact that you're having governments reach out to us, that is a sign that they can see the sustainability and the long-term plan that we have for the continent. We are enhancing inclusivity. I'll give an example. In East Africa, Kenya is the top research. It has the highest GDP, and it has the highest research output. But the fact that you're having countries reaching out to us, looking beyond national sovereignty, but looking at regional integration to see how we can work together to support them, it's a very big plus for us. We don't take it lightly, because it means that a country has gone beyond looking at itself as a sovereign nation to cross over to another country and see how can we support them. And some of these engagements are not taken lightly, and it also comes to fore how the smaller countries that do not have the same capacity know that they have a partner in the region or on the continent who can support them in building and enhancing their inclusivity. So for us, this is such an honor to work in such levels, to the point that our engagement in open science is enhancing inclusivity. Also supporting policy alignment. As I said, the way we've started with East Africa, with the East African, the ESC STI policy with open science. So each country in East Africa will be easier for each of those countries to come up with their national open science instruments. And it is really beginning. So each country is focusing on the areas that they feel as a priority in open science, and then they create national instruments on that. As I said earlier, in Kenya is a national strategy. In Tanzania, they felt that they would rather have national guidelines on publishing and open access and open science, so that they can focus just on publishing. But it's still the tenets. They still fall under the pillars of open science. Fostering sustainability, and that is for us a major win, in the sense that we are not looking at open science as a trend. Okay, it's just not the new toy in the playground. We need this on the continent. We definitely need this. And we need to foster sustainability for it. And the only way that can be done is by creating long-term partnerships, whether it's in infrastructure or in advocacy. So why is open science stakeholder collaboration important? Number one, we are trying to avoid duplication of efforts. We want to increase visibility. We want to have collective solutions, like I shared with you, the one of Doc ID for our persistent identifier. It has literally, even though we are creating it, it is literally owned by stakeholders on the continent. It's owned by the Association of African Universities, the African Academy of Sciences, the data is stored at the Ubuntu Alliance, which is a regional NREN. All these are continental stakeholders. So we end up having collective solutions co-owned by everyone. So open science stakeholder collaboration is really important for us at that level. We end up having broader engagement, inclusivity. It's not a competition. And it is intellectually draining when people still look at it from a competitive perspective. It's also intellectually draining when you're thinking of it from a funder's perspective. And when the funding goes, you're stuck because you do not have a sustainable approach. You do not think through the sustainable way in which you can manage the collaborations in open science. So we need to have a sustainable approach so that we can have broader engagement, inclusivity. Uh, Open science, the collaboration matters because it helps in improving efficiency and alignment, as I shared the example of how we're doing at the region, all the way down to the national level. And finally, you end up having joint capacity building. So as I wind up, all I can say is that strategic collaboration is really important. Strategic collaboration is really important if we want to have sustainable open science engagement. Thank you so much.